He was a giant. She was an omega. And the night they met, the world learned that even monsters can tremble. They said no creature born of moon or man could survive his grasp. They said the giant felt nothing, that mercy had long abandoned his kind. Yet when she crossed his path, the storm itself forgot to breathe. One touch was all it took to shatter the curse of centuries, and awaken something the world was never meant to witness: power, devotion, fire that could burn through fate itself. This is not the story of a beast who found redemption, but of a heart that refused to bow to destiny. The wind bit like teeth as the villagers climbed the path to the mountain's crown. Snow whispered around their boots, and each breath turned to frost before it could reach the air. At the center of their procession walked the girl, the last omega of her line, draped in silver thread and trembling resolve. They said the giant did not speak, that his eyes could turn flame to ice, that no offering had ever returned. Still, she walked, not because she was brave, but because the sky had gone silent, and silence meant the mountain was listening. The gates of his domain loomed above her, carved into the cliff like a scar across the world. The villagers left her there, a small figure before the maw of stone, and when the last torch vanished into the storm, she was alone. The mountain breathed, the air thickened, and from the shadows, he came. He was enormous, not just in form, but in presence. The snow itself seemed to bow beneath him. Every sound bent away, every gust waited for his command. When he stopped before her, she felt the world tilt, as if even the ground feared to stand between them. She bowed her head. "This is my fate," she whispered. He said nothing, only watched her, with eyes that burned through the storm and found the truth she tried to hide. Then, a tremor. The ground split, the offering stone cracked beneath her feet, and she slipped, falling toward the endless white below. But she never met the ground. Something caught her, not claws, not chains, but a force that stilled the wind itself. She opened her eyes, and for the first time, saw his hand hovering inches from her, power swirling around it like light breaking through water. He hadn't touched her, yet the world behaved as if he had. Her breath froze. The mountain went still. And then, his voice, low, ancient, carrying the weight of forgotten storms. "You carry her mark." She didn't understand, but her heart did. It pulsed once, a sound too loud for silence, and a faint glow spilled from her wrist, a pattern neither of them had seen in centuries. The giant stepped back as if struck by memory. "You should not exist," he said. The snow began to rise in spirals around them, caught in unseen wind. She could feel it, something vast and wordless pulling at her, whispering of curses and broken vows. "I don't understand," she breathed. He looked at her then, truly looked, and the storm dimmed as though afraid of what that gaze might reveal. "Then understand this," he said quietly. "The mountain no longer owns you." And before she could ask what that meant, the gates behind him closed with the force of thunder, sealing her fate in the darkness beyond. The mountain did not claim her. He did. The fortress was alive with wind. It moved through corridors like a restless spirit, slipping beneath the doors, whispering through the cracks in the stone. The Omega followed its trail, her bare steps echoing faintly in the silence. Every wall bore the memory of storms, deep scars where lightning had kissed the stone, faint glows that pulsed like the remnants of captured thunder. The giant said nothing as she wandered. He didn't need to. His silence carried weight, the kind that could bend air and bend will. He moved like something older than reason, deliberate, precise, as if each gesture was measured to prevent the world from splintering around him. And yet, there were cracks. She could see them. The faint tremor in his hand when he passed too close. The pause before he spoke her name, as though the sound might ignite something neither of them could contain. At night, she could hear him pacing the halls above, a rhythm that never matched the storm outside, a rhythm made of restraint. Once she found him in the great hall before the fire, his gaze fixed on the flames as if searching for absolution inside them. When he turned, she felt the weight of every life he'd taken and every one he hadn't. "Why did you save me?" she asked. His expression didn't change, but the air around him did, a faint shimmer, like heat above snow. "Because I forgot," he said quietly. "Forgot what?" "How to end a life that looked back." She didn't understand the meaning, but the truth of it wrapped around her like the first breath before a storm. Later she found the marks, not on his body but on the walls of his chamber, etchings carved deep into stone, repeating in a language she didn't know. When she touched one, the air sparked. The mark glowed briefly, and she felt something move beneath her skin, a pulse that wasn't hers. The giant appeared in the doorway before she could pull away. The look in his eyes was enough to make the air flee the room. "You should not touch what binds me," he said. "What are they?" "My vow." He stepped closer, and the firelight caught the silver of his hair, the edges of his shadow stretching far enough to swallow her own. "Once I swore never to harm an Omega," he said. "It was meant to cage me. Now it only reminds me what I am not allowed to want." The last word hung between them, not desire but the ache of something far more dangerous, curiosity. The torches flickered, the runes dimmed, and for a heartbeat too long, the silence between them felt alive. Then he turned away, voice low, roughened by restraint. "Stay out of the western wing. The vow does not protect you there." She should have asked why. She should have obeyed. But when the storm screamed against the windows that night, she found herself walking toward the forbidden wing anyway, following the sound that wasn't wind, a whisper calling her name from the dark. The night broke open with the sound of horns, long mournful cries that rolled down from the ridge and trembled through the halls of stone. The Omega woke to silence first, then the echo of the giant's steps. They were heavier than before, measured, deliberate, as though each one carried a warning to the earth itself. He said only one word as he passed her chamber: "Hide." The air changed after that. It tasted of metal and distance. From the balcony she saw them, torches threading through the forest like veins of fire, a rival pack. Their scent was thick and sharp, carried on the wind like a dare. She should have run deeper into the fortress, but something kept her there. An instinct that whispered she was not the prey tonight. The moment the first arrow touched the sky, the mountain answered. Lightning tore the horizon open, the ground convulsed, and from its heart rose the giant. He didn't shout, didn't summon power with words. It simply answered him. The trees bent away, the snow ignited, the air itself began to burn red. The forest became a sea of flame and shadow. She had never seen fury take form before, never known that anger could have wings. The intruders never reached the gate. The storm devoured them long before. But the giant did not stop. The fire kept growing, crawling higher, climbing toward the sky as though it wanted to swallow the moon. "Enough," she whispered, though he could not hear her. Still, she stepped out into the wind. Each gust tore at her, but she kept walking until the firelight found her face. The world was noise and heat, yet when she called his name, everything fell still. He turned. For an instant, she saw what lived behind his restraint, something vast and endless, barely caged by skin and will, power made of grief, longing, and an oath too heavy to bear. "Stop," she said again, her voice shaking but sure. And he did. The flames bent inward, collapsing into sparks that scattered like dying stars. The red sky dimmed, leaving only smoke and the scent of rain. When the wind finally settled, he was kneeling. The earth around him had turned to glass, still warm from his rage. She moved closer, the quiet pressing against her ears. He didn't look up. His hands were buried in the scorched soil as though he was afraid to raise them again. "This is what I am," he said. "You shouldn't have seen it." She shook her head. "You stopped when I asked." He lifted his gaze then, and she felt it. The invisible thread that always pulled tighter when silence lingered too long between them. The runes on his arms glowed faintly, brighter near her, chains of light that pulsed in time with his breath. Each one cracked slightly when she stepped closer. Her presence was breaking something. She could feel it. The air hummed, the marks dimmed, and for a heartbeat the storm that lived inside him looked free. "Your nearness unbinds me," he said, voice low, strained. "And when the chains fall, there will be nothing left to hold the storm." She wanted to speak, to promise safety, but words felt useless in that moment. The world was already changing. She could sense it beneath her feet. The sky that had burned red began to bleed into dawn, and in that fragile light neither of them moved, two figures caught between ruin and mercy, bound by something neither yet understood. The dawn after the red sky was too quiet. No birds, no wind, only the sound of ash settling where forests once stood. She found him at the edge of the scorched plain, still as stone, staring toward a horizon that had lost its color. The chains of light along his arms had faded, leaving only faint scars that glowed like embers beneath skin. He didn't turn when she approached. "The storm should have taken me," he said, "but it stopped. Because of you." She hesitated. "Then I should be grateful." "No," he said, voice low. "You should be afraid." The air around them shifted. The world seemed to hold its breath. He faced her finally, eyes lit with something between warning and surrender. "The bond is forming whether we will it or not. If I sever it now, you live. If I let it finish, our lives become one thread. When one is cut, both unravel." Her heart stumbled. "Then end it." For the first time, he smiled, sadly. "If I could, I would. But it listens to you now. Only your choice can decide its path." The sky began to darken again, though the sun had only just risen. She could feel the pull between them, the same invisible current that had saved her life, that now threatened to bind it forever. "Freedom," he said softly. "Or the bond. Choose before the fire chooses for us." She wanted to say no, to run, to pretend her pulse didn't match his. But as she looked at him, this creature who had unmade armies and trembled at her whisper, she felt something shift. Not love, not safety. Recognition. As though some forgotten part of her had been waiting for this moment since before her first breath. "I choose," she said, and her voice broke like glass in the wind. "The bond." The world exhaled. Light tore through the sky in a single arc, painting the mountains in shades they'd never worn before. Crimson, gold, and silver braided together like living flame. He reached out, not to touch her, but to hold the air between them. The space glowed. Symbols neither of them understood burned into existence around them, whirling like fragments of forgotten stars. Her chest tightened. Every heartbeat carried something new, echoes of emotion that weren't hers, fury as deep as oceans, sorrow like winter, and a longing too ancient to name. He fell to one knee, his breath unsteady. "It is done." But even as the light faded, she felt the truth rise like smoke. This bond was no gift. It was a survival tether, a law written in old fire. She could sense it now, how close their fates had drawn together. If one fell, the other would follow. If one heart stopped, both flames would die. The mountain rumbled beneath them as if in agreement. And somewhere far below, something else stirred. Something that had been waiting for this moment of weakness, this union of power and fragility. She met the giant's gaze. "What happens now?" He looked toward the dark horizon. "Now," he said, "the world will come to test the fire we've lit." For a handful of days after the binding, the world seemed to sleep. No thunder, no threat, only the hush before consequence. Then the wind changed. It carried voices that were not wind at all. The council had spoken. From the heights of their marble towers they declared the giant a traitor, the Omega a weapon forged in secret fire. Every pack was ordered to hunt them. Every oath was rewritten. The mountains filled with watchers. The giant heard first. He always did. He sealed the gates of his fortress and led her into its heart, a labyrinth of caverns that shone faintly with trapped starlight. The world believes what it fears, he said, and now it fears you. The air there felt different, heavy with iron and memory. Sometimes she could sense the bond between them hum like a low chord, warning her of danger even before he spoke. At night, she could almost feel the rhythm of his thoughts, worry, anger, the constant calculation of survival. He rarely slept. When he did, storms gathered over the peaks as if the sky shared his unrest. Then, one morning, the silence broke. A scent, familiar, human, drifted through the fortress. Not his, not hers. Someone had entered the unenterable. The intruders came not with blades but with voices. They filled the halls with stories of rebellion, whispered that the bond was a cage, that the giant meant to drain her power and keep her forever at his side. Their words struck where weapons could not, and one voice among them cut deepest. It was soft, almost kind, a tone she knew from another life. She followed it through the corridors until she found its source, a man wrapped in travel dust and regret. His eyes carried the same color as the fields of her village. "Do you remember me?" he asked. She did. The boy who had once promised her safety beneath the same moon that now condemned her. "They lied to you," he said. "The creature you serve destroyed our kin. The council sent me to bring you home." Home. The word stung. It smelled of smoke and betrayal. "You think he bound me against my will?" she asked. "I think you don't know what you are bound to." He reached for her, but the air between them flared. The bond had sensed deceit. It burned cold. From the shadows, the giant appeared, silent, eyes rimmed with the storm's light. The intruder staggered back, breath caught between defiance and fear. "This is how they fight now," the giant said, with words sharp enough to wound the heart. The intruder laughed bitterly. "You can't win a war against every pack." "No," the giant replied, stepping closer, "but I can end it before it begins." The man's courage broke then. He fled toward the mountain's edge. The giant did not follow. He looked instead at her. "They will keep sending more," he said, "each one carrying a piece of your past." She wanted to tell him she was not afraid, but the truth pressed heavier. She was, not of the council, not of death, but of what the bond was turning them into. That night she dreamed of fire spreading through the mountain's veins, of chains melting to nothing, of a voice whispering her name in a language the earth itself understood. When she woke, the giant was gone, and the wind carried the scent of war once more. The night came heavy with rain, the kind that carried whispers. The fortress felt smaller than it ever had, its walls echoing words she couldn't unhear. "He saved you to bind you. The bond is not love. It's a leash." Each whisper planted doubt, and doubt grew teeth. When she found the great hall empty, his armor left in shadow and his presence nowhere, the silence screamed louder than truth. She ran. The mountain was merciless. Wind clawed at her cloak, snow rising in white ghosts around her. The bond inside her chest burned, urging her back. But the voice in her head, the one that had once been her own, told her to keep running. She didn't notice the edge until the earth vanished beneath her. For one eternal heartbeat she fell, through storm, through silence, through every moment that had ever kept her alive. Then the world roared. A burst of power split the clouds apart. The giant descended like a fragment of the storm itself, lightning folding behind him like broken wings. He caught her just before the rocks did. The impact rippled through the air, thunder answering in kind. But she was fading, her pulse a fragile thread against the storm. The bond howled between them, pulling, tearing, demanding balance. He held her against the rain's fury, eyes lit with something too wild for sorrow. "You think I used you?" His voice broke through the wind, jagged and desperate. "If I had, you would already be gone." Her lips parted, but no words came, only the faint shimmer of light at her throat, the mark that bound them, the mark that was dying. He could feel it, the bond unraveling, his power clawing to escape its vessel. The curse demanded payment. It wanted her gone. It wanted its end. "No," he growled, as the storm thickened. "Not her." And then he did what no alpha, no cursed being, was ever meant to do. He fell to his knees. The world reacted instantly. The mountain groaned, the wind screamed. Power spilled from him like blood from a wound, wrapping her in threads of silver and flame. The curse tore itself free of him, a blinding storm that twisted around them both before crashing into her chest. She gasped, the sound barely human, the air itself bending inward as if drawn to her. When the light dimmed, he was trembling, emptied of the force that had once made him a god among beasts. And she was standing. The fire that had always answered to him now circled her instead, whispering her name in 1,000 silent tongues. "What have you done?" she asked, voice unsteady. He looked up, eyes hollow with both peace and loss. "Given you the curse I could no longer bear." Lightning flashed again, but this time it came from her. Soft, controlled, obedient. The storm bowed. And as she stood there, the snow melting at her feet, she realized the truth beneath the vow. He hadn't saved her life. He had given her his own. The storm that once obeyed him now bowed to her. For days the mountains trembled under her awakening. Winds bent to her breath. Lightning followed her gaze, and the once quiet sky learned a new kind of voice, hers. The giant watched from a distance, each surge of power cutting through the clouds like a heartbeat. Where her steps fell, snow melted into rivers of light. Where her fury rose, thunder answered. She was no longer the frightened offering who had once walked into his shadow. She had become the storm itself. But power born of pain is never gentle. He approached her carefully, every movement deliberate, as though nearing the edge of a blade. "You must learn restraint," he said, his tone heavy with both warning and admiration. "Restraint," she echoed, the word strange on her tongue. "When the world calls me curse and weapon? When every life I've ever known wanted me bound or burned?" Her voice carried over the wind, soft, but the air trembled when she spoke. "Their fear will eat you alive," he told her. "And your caution will bury us both," she replied. Lightning rippled across the horizon as if her words had woken something deeper. The giant could feel it. The bond between them, once a tether, now an open wound. Every emotion she felt stormed through him. Her grief, her defiance, the taste of betrayal still raw in her chest. The mountains shook. He tried to reach her, but the storm wrapped around her like armor. Sparks scattered across her skin, painting her in the colors of the tempest. "Enough," he called out. The world stilled for half a breath. Then she screamed, not in pain, but power. The sound split the air, the kind of sound that unmade silence. The skies bled red again, the wind twisted, and the storm answered not as weather, but as will. The giant fell to one knee under the force of it, his breath catching. "Stop," he shouted. "You'll wake it." But it was already too late. The ground cracked, glowing from beneath with light that wasn't fire. The moon above turned pale, its edges swallowing shadow. The air grew heavy, thick, watching. From the heart of the storm, a voice older than either of them whispered, "Finally, you remember me." The giant's eyes widened. "No." The light dimmed. From the fissure rose a shape, neither solid nor smoke, vast and cold, its form shifting with every blink. The very sky recoiled. "The moon's shadow," he said, his voice breaking on the words. The curse itself. It moved like thought, like memory, circling her, tasting the air she had changed. You took what was mine, it said, its voice like glass dragged across stone. You carried my chains, and now you dare to break them. The giant stepped forward, thunder rolling in his wake. Take me instead. But the shadow's laughter bent the trees. It's too late for bargains. She woke me, and now she is the key. The storm around her faltered, drawn toward the being as though recognizing its maker. Her eyes burned with light not her own. What are you? She whispered. I am the first promise, it said, and the last. The giant reached her then, forcing his way through the wind that clawed and bit. Listen to me, he said. It feeds on regret. Don't give it yours. She looked at him, and the power in her gaze was no longer fear nor anger. It was resolve. I'm not the one who will break, she said quietly. It is. Then the sky screamed again, and the mountain split open, swallowing light and shadow both. The mountain still burned at its roots. Smoke rose in ribbons that never reached the sky. In the silence after the storm, she and the giant stood amid the ruins, ash where trees once stood, glass where rivers once ran. The moon's shadow hovered above the scorched valley, its shape neither whole nor broken, its voice the echo of every fear they had ever dared to name. I offer you peace, it said. Break your bond, and the world will heal. Its words were silk stretched over knives. The air shimmered with false mercy. The giant moved before her, shoulders squared, his form outlined in light that still clung to him from the storm. You call this peace? You only fear what we've become. The shadow's laughter rippled through the air, quiet and cold. I do not fear you, giant. I pity you. You have forgotten what you are. She has not. Its gaze turned to her, and the world seemed to dim. You carry his curse in his heart. End the bond, and you both are free. The bond inside her pulsed once, sharp as lightning beneath her skin. For a moment she felt it, his heartbeat threading through hers, his pain folded inside her own. If I break it, she asked, he dies? No, the shadow lied. He will live, you will live, the world will live. But she could feel the lie curl like smoke through her chest. The bond hummed in warning, showing her flashes, the giant's fall, the world unmade, light shattering into silence. The giant turned to her. Don't listen. She met his eyes, and the bond flared between them. That same current that had once saved her life now demanding a choice that could end it. Why? She asked. Why curse us at all? The shadow's form shifted, faces flickering within it, past alphas, fallen omegas, voices that were no longer theirs. Because love is not meant to rival gods. The ground shook. Cracks spread like veins of light across the glassy plain. The giant stepped closer, shielding her from the debris. Enough, he roared. Take me and be done with it. The shadow paused. So noble, it whispered. So predictable. But she carries your strength now. The choice is hers. The bond tightened, heat rippling through the air. She felt his despair like thunder under her ribs. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from knowing he couldn't protect her from this. She turned toward the shadow. If I break it, you leave this world? I vanish, it said, and peace returns. She nodded slowly. Then show me how. The giant froze. No, she didn't look back. If this saves you, I'll do it. The shadow extended a hand of smoke, a shape forming from its edges, a blade made of moonlight, shimmering and unreal. One stroke, it said, cut the bond that ties your souls. She reached for it, feeling the cold radiate through her bones, but beneath the fear, another thought bloomed. Quiet, precise, defiant. She could end the bond, or she could end it. Her fingers closed around the weapon. And in that instant, the bond whispered across her mind. Not words, but understanding. He knew. He felt her plan as though it were his own. Do it, his voice echoed inside her. But don't miss. The shadow leaned forward, certain of its victory. She raised the blade, not toward the bond, but toward the darkness itself. Light burst from her hands, pure and unyielding. The shadow screamed, its form scattering like shards of black glass across the wind. When the light faded, she stood trembling, the weapon turned to dust. The giant caught her before she fell. "You didn't break the bond," he said. "No," she whispered. "I broke the lie." Above them, the moon bled silver tears. The shadow was gone, but not dead. Its whisper lingered on the wind. "You cannot destroy me. You can only become me." The bond between them pulsed again, harder, deeper. Something inside it had changed. And as dawn broke, she realized that mercy and cruelty had finally traded places. The moon hung low, heavy with shadow, its light no longer silver-cast but bruised. Across the horizon the packs gathered, eyes glowing with an unnatural glint. The Alpha Council had fallen, their will devoured, their bodies hollowed and filled with the voice of the moon's shadow. When they moved, it wasn't as wolves or men, but as echoes of one vast hunger. The giant stood at the mouth of the valley, his presence still vast, but quieter now, a storm holding its breath. Behind him she watched, the air trembling with every pulse of the bond. "This is it," he said. "The world that feared us will now decide if it deserves to live." The shadow rose above its new army, its form stretching through clouds like a living eclipse. "You could have ruled beside me," it hissed. "Now you will fall beneath me." He didn't answer. He simply stepped forward. The first wave struck like an avalanche, claws, blades, and fire. The giant met them head-on, his power flaring one last time. Mountains shook, rivers reversed, the sky turned red again. Each strike sent tremors through her chest. Every wound he took split through her as well, the bond's mercy, now its curse. "Stop," she called, her voice cracking the air. "You can't win this alone." He turned, blood and lightning tangled in his aura. "Then let me lose well." The words hit her like thunder. Before she could answer, he was gone, swallowed by the army's fury. She ran toward the light. Each step felt like moving through a storm made of time itself. The bond screamed between them, every pulse more desperate, more human. When she reached the battlefield, the sight froze her breath. The giant, her giant, was on one knee, the ground beneath him scorched to glass. His power flickered, unsteady, as though even the world had begun to forget what he was. The shadow loomed above him, its laughter rolling like thunder. "Immortal you called yourself, but even gods can break." He lifted his gaze. "Then let me choose how." With the last of his strength, he drove his hand into the earth. The ground split open, and light, pure, endless, defiant, erupted. It wasn't destruction. It was transfer. She felt it instantly, power flooding into her veins like wildfire, heavy and alive, too vast to contain. Her knees buckled, her vision blurred with color that didn't belong to this world. "No," she whispered. "Don't you dare." He smiled, small, tired, and heartbreakingly human. "The curse was never meant to end me, only to pass on." Lightning burst through his chest, not from outside but within. His immortality, the storm that had defined him, unraveled in ribbons of light. She reached for him, but he was already fading, not dying but dissolving into the power he had given her. The shadow recoiled, shrieking, "You cannot defy the first law." But the giant's voice rose through the storm, echoing from every gust, every trembling leaf. "Then let the law learn fear." The light consumed the valley. The shadow screamed once, and was gone. When the dust cleared, only she remained, kneeling amid a world reborn in quiet ash. The sky, for the first time in centuries, held no storm, only dawn. The wind brushed her hair, carrying his voice faintly. "The storm is yours now." She lifted her face to the rising sun, and the mountains, old and wise, bent their peaks in respect. For the new legend the world would learn to fear, the Omega who inherited thunder. The wars ended quietly. No grand coronation, no song, only the soft hum of life returning where ash had ruled. The rivers remembered their names. The forests grew back, cautious but green. And above it all, the mountain stood unchanged, its peaks carved with memory. She lived there still, not as a queen nor as a savior, but as something the world could not decide how to name. Some called her the storm-bearer, others, the Omega who broke fate. But to the mountain, she was simply the one who stayed. At dawn, she would stand at the edge of the cliff where he once stood, feeling the hum beneath her feet, the echo of the bond that refused to fade. Each pulse was faint now, like the heartbeat of the world itself. Yet it was enough. When thunder rolled across the sky, she would close her eyes and hear him in the rain. "I was never your protector. I was your equal." Those words became her law. She taught them to the children of the packs who came seeking wisdom, to the lost and the frightened, to those cursed by fear of their own power. Generations passed. Empires rose, fell, and were forgotten. The mountain remained. So did she. Time no longer held meaning. Only the storm did. Then one night, centuries later, the air shifted again. The wind tasted familiar, electric and wild. Thunder cracked open the sky, louder than it had been since the night he fell. The mountain trembled. The rivers paused. Even the stars seemed to hold their breath. She stepped into the stormlight, heart steady, knowing. Through the mist, a figure began to take shape. Tall, unyielding, eyes blazing with something both new and ancient. He walked as the first giant once had, with the weight of power and memory in every step. But when he raised his face to her, it wasn't the same gaze that had once met hers in fire and storm. These eyes glowed like moonlight, her own. The bond hummed again, soft but certain, like a melody remembered after centuries of silence. He spoke, voice deep and clear, carried by the wind that had once bowed to her. "The storm never dies. It only changes hands." For the first time in lifetimes she smiled, not from relief, nor victory, but recognition. The sky opened above them, rain falling like silver threads, lightning dancing between the peaks in quiet celebration. The storm had returned, and with it, the promise fulfilled. That power, once born of curse and sorrow, could become something endless, shared, and new. Somewhere far below, the mountain sighed, old stone shifting as if in approval. Legends would tell of this night, of the giant reborn and the Omega eternal, of the storm that would never again be feared but followed. And as the world turned beneath the thunder, two voices, one ancient, one new, spoke as one into the rain. "We are not the end. We are the beginning,